Hi, I'm Christina, and this is NewWayz podcast. Today, my guest is an actor, author, and mental health advocate, Sid Mallya. Thank you for being here with me.
Hello. I'm also long-term NewWayz guest.
Long time new. Yeah, Sid has been on here a handful of times because he's just such a great person.
Super fan.
Yeah.
Can't keep away from Christina. What can I say?
But today, besides that, today the topic we are discussing is one that's near and dear to my heart for sure, as well as potentially many others. Feeling unseen and unsupported, specifically by family. I know this hits me hard because I've had an interesting upbringing and it's something I've struggled with even today. And I know you are very vocal about your family and how you were raised. And I do love seeing you now flourish into the man that you are in the family that you have created yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So starting off, let's start with the early days. How do you feel like your family influenced your life? Let's put it that way.
You know, it's interesting because I think this is one of those questions that if you'd asked me this like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have given you probably a different answer.
Okay.
So like my book that I wrote has one chapter about like how my parents, when they got divorced when I was very young, how that had an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was written 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was. I think my vantage point today from where I sit is very different to whenever it was when I wrote about it in the book. So what I might say now might be a little bit different.
Good to know.
But I think that like, you know, when you any sort of instability growing up has an effect on a child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I said, my parents got divorced when I was very young. I'm an only child. My dad then had another family, had two girls with his new wife. But we didn't live together, right? Those girls grew up with their mother and my dad in America, and I continued living with my mum in the UK. And then my dad's new wife also had two kids from previous marriage. So it was really four of them all living together. And I was kind of like the one sort of on the outside
Mm-hmm.
that would come in just for the holidays and see them. But then I'd leave again, right? So I was constantly dealing with feeling like I was a part of something for a short period of time and then going back to being on my own.
Yeah.
And then going back into being a part of something and then going back to being on my own. So I think kind of like the instability of that whole situation definitely had an impact on me when I was younger, that then sort of bled into later life and the sorts of things that I would look for, which
Mm-hmm.
was stability and community and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so can't even remember what the question was, but I think that sort of answers
That
it.
was pretty much just like, tell me about your childhood, because I'm a firm believer that like your childhood obviously has a big impact on later on in life moving forward. And that's where a lot of people start when they feel alone or lost, is like, okay, I feel alone or lost because of this reasons. And oftentimes if it starts in childhood, it is because of your family upbringing. So if you could pinpoint certain emotions besides just like your story, how did you feel? Like label it
At
in
the
a way.
time?
Yeah. Not now, because I know when you get older and you gain more perspective, things change.
Yeah, but I think it's also one thing about talking about the past is that you can only talk about it from this present moment.
Really?
So what I'm about to say is an interpretation of what I think I felt back then.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we're going back 30 years, right? It's like when you keep retelling a story or a memory, right? You keep replaying a memory in your mind. It's your recollection or your version of the memory from today, as opposed to exactly what happened.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure.
So I think if I was to label what I felt back then, the overriding thing was it was a loneliness. But it wasn't lonely like I felt on my own. It was more a loneliness as to why I couldn't be a part of that other family. Like, why do those kids all get to live together, but I don't? Now, obviously, we know it's because we had different mothers and I live with my mother in the UK, right? There's a reason for it. But as a child, you can't comprehend that. You're like, well, why do they get to be together, but I don't? So I think it was loneliness that probably then translated into confusion and anger.
Okay. I think that's so funny you say that, because I agree with it completely, that things and your outlook on it change as you gain new perspective and you get a little further back, you can see the picture better. But it's so funny also. I recently had a journey in Joshua Tree, and it allowed me to release some emotions.
Basically, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, she did drugs.
Plant medicine. We're not going to get into
medicine.
specifics.
Okay, yeah. I love it. We'll call it plant
but
medicine.
I was on a journey.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, though, is like throughout my more recent adult life, probably like the past 5 years, I've been in a really good place when it comes to accepting my family for who they are and the relationship that we do have. And I always said, I'm like, it's okay. Like, I actually appreciate my upbringing for where it's brought me. That was the first time in probably a very long time where I like looked at my friend when we were on our journey, and I wanted to just bawl my eyes out. And for a second, I was like, my childhood fucking killed me. And that's now, as I'm like this adult where I still love my family deeply, I have a new appreciation for them. Where back then my emotions were a little bit like rocky, but that's what I find so funny too, is those emotions can still come up. I literally was like, I have not actually admitted that out loud in so long.
Well, I think there's two parts to that. I think the first is that, and I'm a big believer in this, but there's a whole school of thought that whatever experience you have doesn't leave, right? It imprints in you. Now, either you deal with the situation then and release what you have to, or what you don't release stays with you and will come out at some time or another. I read, which I'm sure you have, and a lot of your listeners have read, The Untethered Soul.
Oh, of course.
A book.
Michael Singer, I love him.
Singer. When I first read it 7 years ago, I didn't like it one bit.
Really?
Like my
Why?
least favorite. I don't know why. But I reread it about 6 months ago, and I was like, everything like clicked. You know, it's about timing. Anyway, he has a follow-up to that called Living Untethered.
Yeah, I read that too.
which is actually, you know, it's a much more succinct version of that, which I really like. But his whole philosophy is talking about samskaras stored in the body and imprints that stay with us that can get activated in later life. When you might be doing something which seemingly has no correlation to what the initial event was, and suddenly you get overcome with emotion from something that happened from your childhood. And I'm a big believer in that. Like, patterns get stored, especially, you know, ones that we can't release. And as kids, we don't release a lot of things, right? So we store them, and then we either do the work and release them later in life, or we don't, and they form who we are, and they stay with us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. No, that was just such a weird moment for me, because I was surrounded by so much love with all my friends. Like, definitely it was a very loving moment, and I was like, holy shit, I don't think, one, I've ever said that out loud in a very long time. Two, it was just, I think it was a realization of like the flip my life has made in a way. So back to that kind of topic you just mentioned, how did the emotions and the experiences in your early childhood and your family life influence going forward then, like your teens, when you went away to school? Like, what do you feel like you were always seeking something? What did you attract? How do you think that influenced your life?
I went to boarding school when I was 10, so I lived at the school. So I kind of got my sense of community from being in school and living with other kids. It's also around the same time like Harry Potter came out and everything. So it was like, you know, you were reading these books and you were kind of like living in Hogwarts? Pretty much Hogwarts without the magic. But you know, I had this community around me. I think when I connection has always been important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Human connection. And I think that definitely in my relationships growing up, I would always, I'm talking about like romantic relationships, I would always look for like, or maybe I wouldn't even look for, I would always get drawn to girls that came from like solid family backgrounds, who had like multiple siblings and like these big families. So I could feel like I was a part of that because I didn't feel like I had it growing up. So that's kind of like how it definitely manifested itself into sort of like behavior.
Do you think ever you would like overlook certain qualities just because they had a big family and you're like, oh, this little thing can slide just because they have something else I'm looking for? Do you think that ever played a part in it?
I don't know if other qualities would necessarily slide, or like I wouldn't look at those qualities, but I would definitely perhaps find myself in situations where the motivating factor of being in that situation was the feeling of being a part of something. That what that would give me.
Okay. Would you ever turn somebody down if they didn't have a big family?
No.
I know that's not the case now because I know your wife.
No. I don't. No. And I've I've never turned anyone down.
Really?
No,
Ever?
No.
You've never turned anybody down romantically. You just love everybody you meet?
No, I guess there's definitely been situations, right, where people have, I mean, it's like with anything in human life, right, where you're like, you just don't match with someone and someone may like you, you don't like them, or
but that's still like turning somebody down.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I think the term turning someone down is a little bit sort of like harsh. I more kind of like, yeah, I haven't been compatible with people.
It just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
But that's never been because of, oh, I've looked at the family sort of thing.
See, that's so interesting that that's the path that you decided to go on, though, because I know a lot of people also, they like to mimic certain things in their childhood subconsciously. Like me growing up when I was looking for a mate, like a lot of my exes definitely represent my relationship with my home life. Chaotic, distant. Like I always felt like if I could fix them, it was like me fixing a relationship with my mom or my dad. That's what a lot of people attract.
Yeah, but well, I think a lot of people attract because they also don't know any different, right?
Yeah.
That's all you know. If you came from that background, it's very easy to bring chaos into your life because for two reasons. Number one, if you've only known chaos, then you don't really have anything to compare it against. Secondly, if you're used to chaos, the known is always safer than the unknown.
Of course.
So at least it's like, all right, I know this is chaotic, but I've dealt with it before. So it's not completely like foreign to me. And then you can feel somewhat of semblance of control with it because you've had experience with it. But you see that all the time with like people, like children that come from divorce. You get a lot of people like me who really wanted to get married, really wanted to have a wife and kids and a family and all that sort of stuff, right? Because I didn't have that stability growing up. But then there are others who come from divorce who don't want to go anywhere near that life because they've seen how it ended up for their parents and they don't want to put themselves in a situation where they could end up in that same boat.
Yeah.
But this now comes back to like sort of like how my opinion on all of this has changed a little bit because, you know, I harbored a lot of anger and resentment towards the way things were handled, my dad, this and that. But now, like, I'm married.
Yes.
I'm 38, so I'm older. And I think I've been able to give him, we'll talk about him specifically, a lot more grace because I'm like, he did what he knew.
Of course.
Does that make sense? Like, so it's very easy to sit here and be like, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. But then again, he was living in a different time, in a different world. He had a different upbringing and he could only operate through the lens that he saw the world. And just because that wasn't the same lens as you and me see the world, or it may not have been the same things. He did things that you and me would have done differently. I think it gets a little bit dangerous if you then start saying, well, you were wrong.
Oh, for sure.
No, but I think that's a really important thing, and I'm happy we're touching on this now, because I wanted to come back to something you said earlier, which I think is really important, which is you said when you went and did the plant medicine and you started crying, you said you now have a new appreciation for your family.
I mean, that's been a long journey and a long road, and definitely versus how I saw them when I was in it, or even my late teens. I love them, and I'm a firm believer too that people do the best that they can with what they know in the circumstances that they're in.
But I think it's actually huge that you came to this realization. And I'll tell you why, because I know you've done this. I know I've done this. I know pretty much anyone that has gone through any sort of spiritual self-work journey, whatever you want to call it, has probably at some point or another experienced what I'm about to say, but they haven't made any shifts. Okay, what happens is that you have these experiences and then you decide to go and work on yourself. Okay, so in whatever way it is, therapy, plant meds, whatever it is, right? You go on a whole self journey. A lot of us then expect the people like our family who hurt us in life to automatically start seeing things through this new lens that we've developed because of the journey we've been on, right? And we, just because we've done the work and gone through a change, automatically expect them to change.
Yeah.
And then they don't. And we get disappointed.
That's another heartbreak altogether.
It's another heartbreak. But honestly, the only person who's responsible for that heartbreak is you.
Oh, completely.
Not them. Because now what's happened is, just because you've gone on this journey and you've found yourself, you can't expect them to be like, oh, cool, no, I actually now start seeing the world your way. And then what do people do? They get heartbroken. And then they start resenting their family even more. And they're like, well, my family's so stupid. My dad or my mom can't see things my way. They just won't work on themselves. Yeah, they won't work on themselves because they were also teenagers in 1950. Like, it was a different world. What do you fucking expect?
My dad will even say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Right? He's like, I'm too old, Christina. I'm sorry. And he means it.
And my dad has said the exact same thing to me. He's like, Sid, I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
And I am not giving people any free passes now. But just because you've done self-work, to then think that you're all high and fucking mighty, and I'm saying you, I'm saying anyone that's done this, to then start thinking that you're better than these people, or that they should suddenly start seeing the world your way because you're now enlightened, is actually not just dangerous, it's arrogant.
It is.
Right? So the fact that you were like, no, I went through this journey, I didn't expect them to change. I changed my view of the family because that's something I can control. That's actually, I think, the point that we should all be going through, right? When you do any sort of self-work.
Yeah.
It's about changing yourself so you can then change your relationship with them, as opposed to trying to change the other person. But I think a lot of this gets mixed.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And then what happens with self-work is that a lot of people think, well, now I'm better than my family, right? They're stupid. What's that going to do? It's going to cause
It made my relationship worse at first, to be 100%. Honest with you, because when I saw this new side and this new light, I was like, I can help you now too, because I've helped myself. But then it's another heartbreak. It's more tension and fighting, because it's like, why can't you see it? I've definitely gone down that road, and I've realized, thankfully, and I've learned that it's not worth it, and it doesn't work. Accepting the person for who they are and trying to just be present with them and enjoy the moment for what they have to offer, to me, is key.
Yes.
I don't know about you.
I think that's huge. And I think that, trying to change people, to be like, I can help you, I can do it. And then if they're like, no, to get like offended by it and be like, oh, well, you're so stupid. That mindset is actually very dangerous. And that's when I think self-work and spirituality gets dangerous, and it doesn't bring people closer together, which ideally should be the goal of all of this. It causes more of a rift. Right?
Oh, completely.
The minute anyone starts thinking they're high and mighty, I mean, it lost people elections. pretty recently, right? That kind of mindset. And I don't want to get into that. But that's the point, is that the minute you start thinking you're better than someone, is when all of this gets dangerous. And I think that can often happen with self-work. And I think that can often happen when we think about our family or the people that have hurt us. Instead, do the work on yourself so you can then gain a level of empathy and understanding and try to understand why they did the things they did. Now, I want to be very clear right now and say something, because I know that there are people who are probably watching this who are getting probably a little bit pissed off with me right now, being like, well, you don't know what my family did to me. Okay.
Yeah. I've had people tell me that. I'm going to say this
directly into the camera. Okay. I am not saying you forget the past. I am not saying you give people a free pass. And I'm not saying that you start condoning any bad behavior that might have happened towards you in the past. I am not saying that one bit. All I'm saying is try and figure out a way to be empathetic, which doesn't mean suddenly I'm going to forgive you all of that. You can still keep whatever animosities you have, but try and understand from their point of view, okay, why did this person do that thing? Right? Now, maybe that's the actor in me talking, because like, when you're playing different characters, you want to try and understand why certain characters do certain things.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean that you forgive them. It doesn't mean you condone what happened. But I think if we can all get better at trying to understand people, that is the only way that you're going to see any meaningful change.
I'm really happy you mentioned that, because that was something I wanted to make very clear too. I feel like a lot of people get stuck on, forget the past, it's the past, it doesn't exist anymore. And I'm like, just let go of your attachment to it and the hurt and the burden that you've been carrying. That doesn't mean forget it, because I believe that the past holds valuable lessons and it teaches us how to move forward, as well as it makes us understand things better. Don't forget your past, but like, stop getting so hung up on what happened in the past is my biggest thing. And just try to realize people are people.
Yes. And I think that we also need to be a little bit careful about passing judgment on people when we haven't actually experienced what they went through. It's like when you hear parents being like, you get angry at your mom or your dad, and they're like, you just wait till you have kids.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's such a fucking stupid thing to say. But actually, it's kind of true, right? I've done years worth of self-work. I got married a year ago, and I realized that I know nothing. I have to start again, because I'm now in a situation that I didn't have any prior experience in being in.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think it's what Brene Brown or one of these people says, like, if you haven't been in the arena, don't pass opinion on it. Kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like that, which it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. I didn't like what so-and-so did. My parent, my brother, my aunt, whatever. And by the way, I'm not talking about like real horrific stuff. I'm talking about like, the way they
micro traumas in a way.
Yeah, the way that they dealt with certain situations. Okay, I understand that. You wouldn't like that. But have you been in the same situation with a child? Have you known what it was like? So we don't really, and this is why I said what I said a few minutes ago, which is like, be upset by all means, but also try and figure out why they did the things they did, the same way that you did with your mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only way you're going to be.
I actually brought that to her attention. Like, I was just like, can we have a conversation about this really quick? Not expecting anything in return. Cause a lot of times, like, things I say aren't always received by my family, and I'm okay with it. And I don't try to force it on them. It came up in a casual conversation one day, and she was literally like, thank you for like realizing that. So I was actually shocked. I do think open communication, and it brought us a little closer.
For sure. I had the same thing with my mom. Like, growing up during the divorce, after this, I thought my mom was the devil, because I couldn't understand, why did this family get to live together, all these kids, and I couldn't? Well, you must be the problem, mom. You're the one that's stopping me from living with them. You know what I mean? You don't know any better at that age. Obviously, you're older and you understand that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah.
And also, are there things that maybe people could have done better during that period? Of course. But my mum was the age that I am now when that divorce happened, which is not young, but it ain't old. And it's like, you were young.
Yeah.
And you did what you did in that situation with no prior experience, and you did what you thought was right in the moment.
So let me ask you this then. What were ways that you came to these realizations?
I don't know, if I'm honest. Like, I don't want to, I can't pinpoint it. I think this is one of the other things with like self-work is that you do I'll give you an example. I'll use an
Okay.
analogy. When I was at drama school in the UK for my master's, it's a year long, about, I'd say probably 8 months later, the head of our course used to do private acting sessions for like groups of students who she used to teach, like who had graduated.
Yeah.
And I went and I did a scene in it, and she's like, "That was really good, Sid." She's like, "It's working. The training's working." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "A lot of the time, because when you're at the school, you're so in it and so much information is being thrown at you. It sometimes takes 1, 2, 3 years to actually let what you've learned settle into the body and for us to start seeing results." So she's like, "I'm seeing like all that work you did back then is working now." And I think we can apply that to kind of like the self-work as well, is that a lot of the time we do this work expecting to see results. Sometimes we do. But other things need time. You can intellectually understand something, but it takes a lot of time to actually get that into your way of being. And so when I say I don't know, it's because it just clicked at different moments for no rhyme or reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could have worked with it with my therapist, and then actually I finally got to the place of peace 3 years later. And I think that's another thing to keep in mind. Like when we do this work as well, don't expect results. Let the process naturally happen, and things will click when they're meant to click and when you're ready to kind of like see it.
Yeah. I love how you said that, because there's been so many times where like I read something and I'm like, oh, that really resonates. Like, I love that. And you try to implement it in your day-to-day life and you think you got it and you think you get the concept. And then there's finally a time when you do get it. Like, I feel it in my body. Like, it's an energy shift. It's an emotion shift. And you're like, holy shit, I actually get it now. It's one thing to know things. It's a whole nother thing to feel it and embody it.
For sure. And it's like with anything, it's conditioning.
Yeah.
Right? If you've been conditioned a certain way to do something for 20 years, you can't expect to be unconditioned overnight. Right?
See, but you keep saying put in the work. For people who have no idea what the work is there any way you could put certain things into perspective at all? What is work?
Okay, so that's like kind of like, I think there's, well, we've now pivoted, but I think this is good. I think there's a lot of buzzwords thrown around when it comes to
The work?
the work and like let's just call it self-work. Right?
Okay.
In general, I think the work is whatever you individually think it is or need it to be. For some people, the work is going to therapy. For other people, the work is meditating. For other people, the work is, I need to figure out where I'm at in my life. I don't think there's any sort of framework as to what the work is. For some people, it's a combination.
I was going to say, for me, it's been like a bunch of different things that have all turned into a beautiful mix.
It's about figuring out for yourself individually, where am I? Where do I want to go? Or who do I want to be? And then working backwards to figure out what do I have to do to attain that. And what you have to do is, that's the work.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up too then, how would you describe your relationships with your family now? Like your father, your mother, even your wife?
Amazing. My wife is like,
she's a gem.
I tear up talking about her. Like, by the way, and I should say this to your listeners, I'm currently in LA right now shooting a film. So I've been away from my wife for 3 weeks. By the time I get home after shooting this, I will have been away from her for a month. And I'd never experienced this before, right? Because I've never had to go and be away from a spouse for that long. But not only do I miss her so much, because she literally is my best friend. We have so much fun together, and every minute with her is just fun, right? It really is fun. But the fact that I can be here shooting this film and have a wife sitting back in London that is so supportive of me, not just supportive of my dreams and my ambitions in life, but the fact that she's like, you know what? I know it's going to hurt me a lot, but you go and do your thing for a month. Like, this is not an insignificant amount of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's only 12 months in a year. One of those,
I know,
I'm
a month's
like
a
gone.
long time.
It's not a significant amount, but the very fact that she can be there, and I know she misses me a lot. I know how much I miss her, but the very fact that she can be like, it's okay, you go and do your thing, I will be fine, and be so supportive, not once make me feel guilty, not once make me feel like I'm like just thinking about myself, not once making me feel uneasy in any way. Like, you know, I could not ask for a better support in my life. And, you know, and a lot of people might be like, well, that's the least you should expect. I mean, honestly, we should expect that from everyone. Very rarely do you get it.
Completely.
However, and I couldn't be happier with her. And the relationship she has with my parents is beautiful as well. Like, I think for my mum, she's the daughter she never had. And my dad, the way that he is with her, it's really nice to see from the outside as well. And knowing that I can be away and they're all there in the UK and they have such a close relationship that, you know, they're there for each other. It's good.
So would you say also too, now looking back, you have a better relationship with your father and with your mom, and it's kind of full circle. You guys have this like this amazing little family right now too. Yeah. But
but I
different.
but I also think it's because, you know, I'm like close to 40 and you get to a stage in life where it's like, you know, relationships change simply by the fact that they're both 70. My dad's 69. He'll be 70 in a few months. I'm almost 40. I'm married now. And I think because of that, relationships just tend to repair themselves.
Yeah.
I don't want to say repair as if like it was massively broken, but I think just certain things is you get to a certain age and it's like,
yeah, it kind of works itself out, or it's just like
that's exactly it. It works itself out if you allow it to.
Yeah, if you allow it to. And I think that's so beautiful though, because anybody who's going through it right now, even like, I'm a firm believer, I'm like, wait, focus on becoming the best version of yourself, which it seems like what you focused on, and everything will fall into place. It does get better as long as you allow it to, and as long as you work on yourself. I feel like a lot of times when people are in it, they don't see a way out, but we forget that things are constantly changing.
For sure.
So just doing the best that we can for ourselves and for others is probably what's the most beneficial, in my opinion.
That is true.
Oh, Sid, thank you so much.
Of course.
You're such an insightful guy. I was not. No, genuinely, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and honestly, just as a friend. Thank you. And thank you guys for listening. Until next time, I love you. Boom. Okay. Oh, Sid, you're such an insightful guy. How'd you get so smart?